Hi, my name is Pat Lawless. I'm the Irish entrant in the 2022 Golden Globe race. The first race took place in 1968, and the rules of the race are that we use 1968 technology. So there'll be no water makers, no GPS, no mobile phones, no computers or chips, and no weather routing with modern equipment. So we'll navigate with a sextant and paper charts. We're allowed to use an old-fashioned paper weather fax that prints out through the SSB radio. The first race took place in 1968. The second race took place 50 years later in 2018, and the 2022 race will be the third race. I often ask myself why I entered, and I can't really come up with a definitive reason. I know when I was young, probably inspired by my father, because he took us on the river and the River Shannon a lot. I would have been inspired by him and he highlighting things to me. But I dreamed of sailing the Atlantic mostly in the single-handed transatlantic races. I also used to dream of sailing around the world in a race, but never in a million years did I think that I would be able to enter a race around the world. I wouldn't have any real interest in sailing around the world unless it was a race. We have so much beautiful cruising grounds in Ireland and around Europe, the Mediterranean. The farthest I would go if I wasn't in the race, I'd say, would be the Caribbean. But here I am, living the dream. So when I decided to enter, in my mind, it was well before the start of the 18 race. I was lucky. If I had known the 18 race was on in time, I probably would have entered that. But I learnt an awful lot from looking at the 18 race. So I didn't tell anyone for a few months, and then I told my wife before the start of the 18 race that I was thinking of entering. And to my amazement, she said, go for it. 3 days later, she said, if you want to sell the house to do the race, you can. Blew me away. Interesting as well as since I entered the race, we have become closer. You know, it's a funny situation, but that's it. But why I entered, I don't know, apart from the fact that it was a dream. Like, I'd be frugal. I'd be my mind, my money, and it's 30,000 Australian dollars to enter this race between the entry fee and the sponsorship supplement. And there's no prize money. So anyway, I'm delighted I entered. I cashed in my old age pension that I had been paying into a private pension and raised whatever money I could. And I had enough to buy the boat, pay the entry fee, and do a good bit of work to the boat. So that was good, but I didn't have enough money to get to the start line. And actually the budget went up a little bit more than I expected, but that's fine. So when I bought the boat, I sailed to Les Sables-d'Olonne in France, and I sailed home. And I wasn't home long, and I got a message off Kieran Ryan, a friend of mine. He's an events organiser and media person, to say that the Riverfest in Limerick was on, the city of my birth. So I said I'd sail up, I'd be delighted to sail up, so I sailed up. And when I sailed up, a good friend of mine from my youth, Eamon Andrews, he called me to say that he'd like to call down and see the boat, and he came down, and then he said he knew I was going to win, which mightn't be true now, but I'll try my best. But that's, yeah, but he said he'd give me €1,000 towards my campaign. And you know, the €1,000 was fantastic, but the fact that he gave me that money, it made my journey to the start much easier. It made it easier to ask for money or raise money and that, you know. And anyway, Kieran came down and he came on board, and he's done an awful lot for me since. I'll come back to that. So then I sailed home, and another friend, Ian Duggan, he came, actually gave me another 1,000. and another friend, Robert Brosnan, came and gave me more money, and that was all within a short space of time. And those 3 contributions made it so much easier for me to raise money. It's something that I feel uncomfortable about, but it's something I have to do. It's a part of the journey. The journey to the start is fantastic. The sailing, preparing the boat. I love working on boats and sailing, doing the sail training. That's fantastic. The hard bit is all the paperwork and raising money and things like that. But it is a part of the journey, and it's a part you have to do. So then shortly after that, socially, I met O'Cahoney's Joe out. I met Ricky, and he told me he wanted to sponsor me some way. He said, call in for a check. And so I asked him, would he be interested in buying me something? And he said he would. So O'Cahoney's Joe bought me my deck gear, the hardware to bring the ropes from the mast back to the deck. Then I met Noel Heary, and he offered to come on board. He said he'd like his name on the boat, Irish Power. It's a great name to have on the boat, Irish Power and Processes Company. And he bought me 2 winches. And they'll grind me around the world powerfully. So yeah, that was great. And then FLI, Michael Flynn of FLI said he'd like to supply my safety equipment. And that was really fantastic. You know, without looking for any sponsorship, these people turned up and offered me support. So shortly after I decided to enter, I started looking at boats. And I looked at all different type of boats. I spent 6 months actually looking at boats, and I had a lot of sleepless nights over the type of boat to get. I was offered one really good boat down in Italy, but it just wasn't as good as the Saga. But it was way, way cheaper. A really nice man in Italy. Because I was in the Golden Globe race, he would have gave it to me for a fantastic good price. But it's 2 feet shorter than the Saltram Saga and quite a bit narrower. So it wouldn't have a great load carrying capacity, and the boom is a bit long for downwind sailing. You know, I thought anyway, in my opinion. Now there's one in the race, Captain Coconut has one, a Lilo 34, but anyway, I decided on the Saltram Saga, and I'm really happy with it. I believe it's the best boat for the race. It has surpassed my expectations. And yeah, so that's the boat. And shortly then after getting the boat, I started getting onto sail companies, sail lofts. And the sails that came with the boat were Rolly Tasker, and I got onto them. And they came up with fantastic ideas, really good, clever ideas. Like the other sail lofts were interested in that, but they didn't have the same interest. Rolly Tasker put a design team on the job, and they explained to me, because I was using self-steering and a heavy displacement boat, the type of sails I should use, and their design team have the expertise. So, and to make it even better, they gave me a fantastic price recently. For the 10 sails, if you were to buy 10 good racing sails, they cost you 30,000. They gave me a really good price. And then when Michael Flynn heard of the deal I got from him, he said rather than buy safety gear, he'd like to buy and import the sails for me. And that was so, like, his budget went way up, but that was so kind of him, really. It was just magical to get that deal off Rolly Tasker. It was great, but to get the sails without having to pay for them, like, it made everything work so easy for me. You know, it made my journey to the start so much easier. So, thank you, Michael Flynn. Kennedy's Bar in Dingle, he bought me a feather and prop. Dingle Sea Safari in Dingle, he bought me my Weatherfax. Dan Lawless Flowers Limerick, my brother, he sponsored me. Bicycle Solutions Ireland, they got me, and he gave me one. He had an SSB radio. You know, people have been so kind, so kind. And my friend in Limerick here in Ryan, who asked me to go up Limerick, he suggested I form a support committee. And I'd recommend anyone that is doing anything like the Golden Globe race, any adventure things like that they do form a support committee. And So yeah, a friend from Waterford, Philip, he came on board the support committee, and Captain Charles Jibe MacDonald, who was on my father's support committee with me, he's on the committee also, and it's lovely to have the link going back to my father's support committee. My father also sailed around the world, and with stops and that, like, so yeah, big influence in my life. So then James Long, he's my manager, and Sean McEntee is my media manager. And Tom Kelleher, my brother-in-law, a gentle soul. He's a gifted person and a great help to me. He's on my support committee. Martin McCusker, he does my websites, and he's a neighbour back the road and a friend. He's doing all that kind of work for me, and he's getting help from Jim O'Sullivan in Limerick. And so Robert Brosnan, my friend, he's on the support committee, and my daughter and her husband, Johnny P. Hannafin and Helen, they're on the support committee. So the support committee is really working well. They're focusing on me, getting me to do things, that I need to do, and you just sometimes need a push to do these things. And so yeah, so that's really, really good. So since entering the race, I have done quite a lot of work on the boat, and the work is endless, and it's great, it's fantastic, it's enjoyable, and that's so. I have quite a lot done. I'm delighted with what I have done. I'll do another video where I'll go around of the work I'm doing on the boat. But yeah, I still have bits to do. I have to make a new tiller handle for the boat, and the one that's there now will be a spare. I have to finish the crash bulkhead, and I have to finish supporting under the lockers. I've just made a new table. The main work I have to do is the mast. The mast is everything. During the 4 months in the Southern Ocean, the mast, on average, we get 4 or 5 knockdowns. The mast will wind up deep in the water 4 or 5 times. We might do a 360 or a pitch pole. A 360 is when the mast goes down into the water and comes up on the other side. And a pitch pole is when the boat goes head over heels. 2 boats pitch poled in the last race in the Southern Ocean. Susie unfortunately lost her boat after that and had to be rescued. John-Luc Van de Heed, he had a great job done to his mast, and his mast came back up. So I really need to make the mast as bulletproof as possible. So I will do another video totally about the mast, and I'll do another video soon about all the jobs I've done on the boat and the jobs I have to do yet. So thank you very much for listening to me. If you liked the video, please subscribe and share, even better again. And if you know anyone that would like to sponsor me, I'm looking for a main sponsor and minor sponsors. I'd be very interested. So my email address you'll find on my website, and I have a new website. The new website is www.patlawless.com. www.patlawless.com. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you like it, and take care. Bye.